Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our show, Have a Chat with Rogers. We're so proud to be here all these many years now, Audrey and I. I'm your host for today's show, Judy Loche. Audrey Lynch is joining me, and Veronique will soon be returning. So, hello, Audrey.
Good afternoon, Judy. How are you?
I'm not too bad, actually. I'm making the most of my day. We had a pretty good weekend last weekend. My brother was home for his birthday celebration with our family. It was a little bit of an uplift, a big uplift actually during COVID times. And it's always great to have something to celebrate. And we made the most of it. So it was a happy time. And I hope, that we can celebrate many more in the years to come because we're all getting older and we all have those birthdays, COVID or not. We still have to mark the day.
Exactly. Definitely.
Uh,
Definitely.
you brought us a quote today, Audrey.
Yes, I did. I came across this one actually just yesterday, and I quickly saved it to my phone because I just loved it. I thought it was just perfect because I knew I would be saving it for when it was my turn to let everybody
Right.
know what the quote of the day is. So this one actually
Okay.
has a title, and it's called Life is an Echo. What you send
Hmm.
out comes back. What you sow, you reap. What you give, you get. What you see in others exists in you. Do not judge, so you will not be judged. Radiate and give love, and love will come back to you.
You
So
find the
that's life
loveliest quotes.
is an echo. I thought it was
I
just
love it.
perfect. I really did.
Yes.
It just
And
encompasses everything.
yes. And I really, I find, with COVID, people are getting a little bit more harsh in the way
Yeah,
they're just getting a little bit anxious. So
yeah,
they're quicker to judge
yeah,
and they're quicker to,
yeah,
attack somebody and bring others down. And it's just,
yeah,
I think it's not that they're really, really mean, but it's bringing
yeah,
out kind of that in other people. So I try
yeah.
to be non-judgmental and let people just
Mm.
live and let live. It's not my business how other people live their life. And I try to radiate positivity and I when I do that, it brings it back to me. So that's the line that stood out for me the most in that whole quote.
Exactly. Exactly. Just
I
be the
love it.
light. Be the light
Be the
instead of the
light.
darkness,
That's
right?
so nice.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah, we have a great
yeah.
show lined
So
up, Judy. I'm so
you
excited. I can't wait until our
do
our viewers get to find out who we have on the show today.
excellent information
You
and guests we have lined up. Audrey, I
yeah,
don't
you
have much of a green thumb. I have people that do help me with planting and shrubbery and that type of
mhm,
thing, the flower beds. But I was
okay.
asking you if this week you would share with our viewers just some talk
Yeah.
about gardening.
Yeah. Well, actually I did. I never was one for big on gardening, but of course, like I think a lot of people did with the lockdown last year in the spring,
Hmm.
was the first time I actually went out and bought myself quite a few things and started piddling around in the garden a little bit because I do have a couple of flower gardens out front on the property that I own. But this year, the biggest trend, and I jumped on board as well, is the raised garden beds that everybody's
Mm.
buying and giving them a go as well. So you can do flowers and you can do vegetables out of those. So here's the gardening
Oh,
tips that I came up with. Okay, and I'll just
okay.
run through them. There's just 10. Okay, so I got this from
Yep.
Learn Earth Easy. It's called by Carson Arthur. So here's his tip.
Okay.
So start simple with herbs, perennial herbs preferably. Okay, understand the needs of your plants. Okay, what the needs are. Plant
Right.
leafy vegetables in shady areas. Okay, and start
Yep.
with the
Yep.
right soil is number 4. Number 5, it says track what you plant from year to year, what works and what doesn't. Um, pair plants carefully. Now, here's one I had no idea. It's called companion planting. There's some
Hmm.
companion plantings. Don't plant tomatoes with your string beans. That's a no-no. They don't like each other apparently and don't grow well together.
Okay.
So you would want to plant your tomatoes with onions or chives or garlic. So that's something to look
Okay.
into. Number 7,
Mm.
plant in rows to make the weeding of your garden easier.
Okay.
Get into, it's called drought tolerant plants. Okay, so if you're looking to put anything on your patio or your deck, you want plants that are drought tolerant, right? Because there's no earth
Okay.
underneath. So they could dry out very quickly when the sun gets very, very hot. Number
Mhm.
9 is to make use of mulch. In the fall, actually, it's a really good idea for your flower beds or anything else like that to lay newspaper down, he says, and then put
Okay.
compost on top of it. And then in the spring, you just till it over. And the newspaper itself, believe it or not, puts the nutrients back
Oh.
into the soil that is
Hmm.
perfect for planting. And in number 10 says, just do it. Just do it. Go
Just do
ahead.
it.
If you're thinking about it, do it. So those are the
I
gardening
love
tips that
it.
I came up with.
Oh, that's nice. My sister-in-law actually, she has a really wonderful green thumb, and she was over on the weekend and helping my parents in their flower bed and all of that. And she just does a magnificent job with her own. So I'm going to have to get her up doing mine pretty soon. I'm playing around with this earbud.
Hmm.
Uh, so you
Yes.
brought us some fun facts not that long ago. I really enjoyed what you
Hmm.
brought because they're just things that I didn't know. And so I thought, well, I'm going to bring some this week and enlighten a few people out there watching the show. And here's what I came up
Okay.
with, some interesting little tidbits. So, you know how we use the abbreviation OMG, oh my God,
Okay. Yes.
for everything when we text?
Okay.
Well, OMG can be traced back to 1917.
What?
British Navy Admiral John Arbuthnot Fisher wrote to Winston Churchill about rumors of new titles that would soon be bestowed. And he wrote, I hear the new order of knighthood is on the tapis. OMG.
Oh
Who
my,
would think
that is
that it was 1917?
1917.
Right.
That's insane.
Now,
That's crazy. I'll have to tell my kids they didn't invent that.
tell them that. Tell them that it goes that back that far. Now, this is something quite fascinating. The majority of your brain is fat. So 60% of human brain matter is made of fat. So we can
Oh,
go around
okay.
calling
That
each other fat heads.
fat head. Oh my, that's awful. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Potato Head. Okay, I
Yes.
like this one
Okay.
particularly. I had no clue about the next one. High heels were originally worn by men. In the 10th century,
Wow.
yeah, in the 10th century, men in Europe adopted this fashion choice of heels to make it easier to ride their horses. So they thought that by adding heels to their boots, it would make it easier to stay in the stirrups. So I guess we have to give the
I
men
want,
the good high five.
yeah, I want to see a picture of those. I want to see that.
Uh-huh. I don't have pictures, but I thought it was kind of interesting. The
Yes,
the next one I have,
definitely. Definitely interesting.
the fourth one I have is that stop signs used to be yellow. Yeah, in
Really?
1922. Yeah,
Okay.
in 1922, the American Association of State Highway Officials met to determine a standard design for stop signs, and they decided yellow. They just thought that would grab the driver's attention, and I'm sure it would have. But they also thought of red. However, there was no dye available at that time that wouldn't eventually fade. So
Oh,
by
okay.
1954, the sign makers by 1954 had access to fade resistant porcelain enamel, and then they could start making red stop signs. And
Yes.
my last little fun fact for today is that too much water can kill you.
True.
So, when guzzling a lot of liquid, you can suffer from water intoxication, which occurs after an obscene amount of water is consumed, often during endurance events, when the participants are losing sodium through their sweat. And one example of that was in 2002, Boston
Hmm.
Marathon competitor Cynthia Lucero died from overhydration. Yeah.
Oh, for goodness
Do you know
sakes.
any of those? Well, I have
No,
choked
no,
on
actually
water,
didn't know any of those.
actually.
Oh, yes.
Have
Yeah,
you
I've
ever
done
gotten
that.
water caught in your windpipe and you can
I,
actually, I almost
yeah.
died.
Well, I actually had a friend, I was choking in front of her, and it was a glass of milk. I had taken a glass of milk, and sure enough, it
Hmm.
went down, I think my windpipe, I would imagine, and I was
Yeah.
coughing
Yeah.
and coughing and coughing, and she could see my color change and
Yeah.
my struggle.
Hmm.
And my friend grabbed me by the back of the head, and she put my head between my legs because
Okay.
air rises and liquid will fall. And soon as I changed direction, the liquid fell out and air rushed in and I was able to breathe.
Well, it's
That
good to
actually
know that
worked.
because I'm really glad that you told everybody listening that because I was alone one
Mhm.
night years ago and I took water and it went down the wrong pipe and
Yeah,
I thought I was dying. I really thought this is it for me. I could not breathe.
yeah.
It got stuck and I was of course panicking, so I was almost hyperventilating
Mhm.
and the water was there and I thought what am I going to
Yeah,
do? And now, if it ever happens again, thanks to you, I will know what to do, Audrey. But it's an
yeah,
awful feeling, a terrible, terrible feeling when you're
it
alone
is.
and you can't get that next breath due to water. Who would think, right?
No,
Yeah. I just
exactly.
want
That's
to
just it.
bring up we've been talking about some very light things and fun things, but there are also very many day to day things that are very upsetting. And one is the recent attack that took place in Riverview, New Brunswick, with the teenagers
Mhm.
assaulting a group of teenagers assaulting two young teenagers. They were hiding
Yeah.
behind an army tank in a park.
In a park. Yep.
Apparently, yeah, in a park, and they were waiting for these two young girls, and they terribly assaulted them, causing concussions and other bruises and injuries to the nose, face. It's horrendous to me. What is
And
this brutality
videotaping
all
it,
about?
and yeah. And all along, one of the participants in the assault videotapes the attack. So these are girls against, attacking other girls, obviously premeditated to hide, wait for them to come along and attack and videotape the attack. And these girls, I believe, were 14, 15-year-old range. As far as the school's concerned, it happened off property, so they'd have no reason to get involved or take any steps. And I know that the RCMP are now looking at it and investigating, but I'm like, investigating what? The video is there. The girls
Hmm.
actually who took the video posted the video on social
I
media
know.
for, I
Hmm.
don't know, fame, fortune, whatever it is that they think
Yeah.
it's a high for them or something. But charges need to be laid right out of the gate. The parents of if my child did anything even remotely
Yeah.
along this line, like I can't imagine being a parent of one of these teen girls who was a part of this. I
No.
just flabbergasted.
I'm flabbergasted, and that goes both ways. So if that was my child that was targeted and viciously assaulted, I
Mhm,
would be beyond myself infuriated. I would be demanding that there was action taken, and I would be in their face until I was satisfied that justice was done. Because it's animalistic behavior. It's not a case of
mm,
bullying or name calling or pushing or physically. They kicked at these children, kicked them in the
mhm,
head. And I don't understand. I know what you're saying about the video part because they're looking
mhm,
for, obviously, I'm speaking to what I'm assuming is attention. They're going to get the attention
mhm.
from, oh my gosh, look what we just did, look what we just saw.
Yeah,
And so they're getting, maybe they're not, I don't know. I can't speak to these children in particular,
no.
these young people that did the assaulting, but they're looking
Mhm,
for, like you said, some kind of online fame. Okay. But do they like what are they what kind of a message are they not getting? If like you said,
no.
if that was my son, I have two sons, if that was either one of my children, even picking on somebody that caused them to be feeling offended, I would be so upset. But if I ever got a call from the police saying that my boys at 14 or 15 actually kicked and beat I I don't even know. I couldn't even I can't even describe what I would be feeling, but I would put some onus on myself saying, "What in God's name did I teach my
Yeah.
kids? Did my husband and I not
Wha
teach them anything about morals,
Yeah,
about I I
no.
know this happens in
I
other parts of Canada. I've heard about it out in BC. I've heard about it in Montreal. What's happening here?
the part that disturbs me the most is what is going through these girls or these teenagers' minds to think that doing something like this is acceptable or okay? Like what is it that they're seeing online that, that they want to do these things? Like, did these girls, did
Yeah.
they, was there an argument? Was there, he said something about me, or she did something to me? Or was it just for, you know, just for the sake of doing it and having the video? I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm just at a loss on, was there something that could have been done ahead of time, to change the way these girls
Yeah.
think that, you know, how is this behavior becoming acceptable? Period.
Well, something's got to be done, and we as citizens have to start barking and screaming loud and clear that this just has to
Mm,
stop. That whatever programs they can get these kids into to prevent things like this, and the judicial system,
yeah,
I'd say, go heavy on them. Go
yeah.
heavy on them. They're kids.
Harsher,
They're not
harsher.
3 and 4 years old. They're teenagers,
No,
right? But
no,
Audrey,
exactly.
like I said, I hope the sun continues to shine. I'm really excited about spring. I know that we're still, in a pandemic, but I'm enthusiastic that at least we can get out. My son's gone golfing right now. I have the dogs out every day. Our lawn's been mowed. I know you're supposed to look after those bees, but we're going to
Yes.
leave it alone now for a while uh, because of all the
Yes, I've
pollen,
been
and
out.
they need, yeah.
Yeah, I've been out, the raking, getting things ready, starting to enjoy a little bit of the sunnier days. Not quite warm, warm yet, but I'm looking forward to it as well.
Well, as you can see, the sun is beaming in on my face. So I look like I have, I don't know, I'm a little bit of a Casper the Friendly Ghost here. I'm very looking forward to our guests that we have coming on our show. This is the first time that we'll be going international, actually, and you'll have to stay tuned for that guest who is second up in line. And I don't want anyone to go far at all. Grab yourself a beverage or a little snack, and please continue to join us for Have a Chat. We'll be right back, Audrey and I, with some more fantastic guests. Thank you. Hello, and we are back again for more Have a Chat. Once again, I'm your host, Judy Loge, joined by my beautiful co host, Audrey Lynch. And at this time, we're very pleased to welcome a friend of mine and a friend of many, I'm sure, to the Miramichi area, and that would be Lisa McNeil. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Audrey. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank Thank you for making time for us today. And you're here to talk about your role as a domestic violence outreach coordinator, which is a really heavy topic. As soon as I hear that, I think, oh my gosh, this woman endures a lot on a day to day basis for sure at her workplace. But first of all, for the viewers who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, Lisa.
Okay, well, I'm Lisa McNeil. I'm the Domestic Violence Outreach Coordinator for the Miramichi Emergency Center for Women, which is also known as the Transition House. So I work, I'm a member of the team at the Transition House, but I work off site. So my office is at NVCC Miramichi. So I would see the women that don't necessarily stay at the Transition House, but still need those services that they so desperately need. So,
Mhm.
and as for a little bit about myself, I'm born and bred here in Miramichi, raised my family here, and probably will be here till the end of days.
Good. Nice.
Yes. Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about how this entire career and how you got involved in domestic violence in the first place and became, you know, the outreach coordinator that you are today?
Oh, sure. So, way back in the early 90s, I went to NVCC Miramichi actually and took a human service counselor course. And
Hmm.
think it was, well, Audrey, you probably know what year I graduated in,
Yes,
1991 or
we were
something.
there
Anyway,
together.
since
Yes.
we were there
Yep.
together. Since then, I've always worked in a similar field. Worked in group homes. I worked for the Family Support Center with Miramichi, or Volunteer Miramichi. And
Hmm.
2.5 years ago, I needed a change. So saw this in the, I guess I saw it on Facebook or whatever, the ad, and said, oh, what the heck? Applied, and here I am.
Okay. So, Lisa, I know that no 2 days are the same, obviously. You work in a place where there are women, children coming in. It's a
Mhm.
very serious lifestyle that you lead as far as your work role goes. So tell us basically on a given day what might happen and maybe some situations that might arise as a result of these, you being there and these people coming to the emergency shelter. What are some of
Right.
these reasons?
Well, every day is different. Like you said, I never know what's going to happen. Some days you would just wait for that phone to ring, and then some days that phone just rings nonstop. During when the pandemic first started, so a year and a few months ago, when the world kind of shut down, it was
Mhm.
crickets. It was so quiet. I was so worried because I wasn't getting any phone calls, no referrals, no nothing. But everybody was afraid. So oftentimes women
Mhm.
were in the homes with their abusers and they didn't have a chance to make a text, make a phone call, or to reach out. They had to kind of, be quiet and just
Mhm.
wait till they got their chance. But when things started opening up, I guess closer to the summer, it got busy for me again. So it was like, phew,
Mhm.
I'm glad because, um, and it got really busy. So they were ready
Yeah.
to get some services. So I guess in the run of a day, let's say the phone rings and it's a referral from another agency that maybe social development, mental health, or the transition house. Maybe they have somebody staying there that's leaving the transition house and needs some outreach. Sometimes it could be from a family member or a friend. And so a typical client, I would meet with them if they wanted to meet. That's hard during COVID too, because not a lot of people want to do face to face. They
Mhm.
Hmm.
want, but I will meet
Exactly.
face to face as long as it's safe. We mask up, we do 6 feet apart and all that stuff. We can also text, we can also Zoom or do Teams, or I do a lot of phone calls.
Mhm.
And we'll have a little chat and see what kind of is going on. We'll do a danger risk assessment and we'll find out their level of danger, and then we'll go from there with safety planning. I'll also see what other resources I can come up with. Sometimes the safety planning involves moving, so I would help the client maneuver through housing and that type of thing. What
Mhm.
else? Sometimes they require accompaniment. So if they have to go to the police or go to the hospital because they were assaulted or go to court. I'm their
Mhm.
accompaniment person to go with them
Okay.
if they so want.
Mhm.
I always tell my clients, it's your car and you're driving it. I'm not going to force you to do anything. So because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
ultimately their decision. And I'm
Mhm.
also I'm a sister for emergency intervention orders. So it's, so yeah, a typical day could be it's not typical at all.
No, no, no.
No.
Big
No,
load.
So
definitely.
yeah. Yeah, and when I'm
Lisa,
not
can you?
doing, sorry?
No, go ahead. You go right ahead, sweetie.
Oh, when I'm not doing, a work one-on-one with clients, that's when I would be doing, presentations to, other agencies or classrooms, or doing campaigns
Hmm.
for awareness, like Sexual Assault Awareness Month
Mhm.
and that type of thing.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the important facts or maybe statistics that maybe our viewers are unaware of that you deal with as far as the domestic violence and the level of uh, how big of an issue it is here?
Yeah, domestic violence, intimate or also known as intimate partner violence, you'll probably
Hmm.
hear me refer to it as DIPV, 1 in 3. So I always
Ooh,
say, go to the mall or go to church or go to work or whatever and just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So chances are if
God.
you're in even our own families, right?
Crazy.
1 in 3 women are victims. And I believe it's oh gosh, I can't remember what it is for men, but the majority of abusers are men. And the majority of it's a gender-based violence. So the majority of the victims
Hmm.
are women. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as
Mhm.
sexual violence, 1 in 3 females and 1 in 6 males will experience sexual violence in their lifetime. Some form of sexual violence
Gosh.
in their lifetime. Yeah,
No,
Just
those numbers are
heartbreaking.
staggering.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And the
1 in 3
82% of
is
victims, too many. And 82% of victims know their abusers. So it's not always that guy lurking in the alley. Like that's the
no,
least of
Mm,
no,
your worries.
no.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
no.
Lisa, this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. right? And
Mhm.
not long ago, we were putting together, I was part of the production of a video that was really, what can I say? It was so heartbreaking, again, is the only word I can use. Talk to us about the video and how it all came to be and how important it was for each of us to just be put on the chair, haul a question out of the basket and read it. And it was actually a true scenario of something that was taking place at this very moment in this very city of Miramichi.
Right,
Tell us more
right.
and the viewers more about that.
Okay, so every year during Sexual Assault Awareness Month in May, we try to do some kind of a project, and I have a few projects over the years. But this year, COVID, of course, kind of put the
Mm.
kibosh to a lot of my ideas. So everything has to be virtual and online. We had a university student, Hillary, come and wanted to volunteer some time, and she was right on the same wavelength as me. She had this great idea, and she presented it, and her vision was fantastic. So what it was, we invited some random people in the community to come, and they pulled a fish. There was a fishbowl. They pulled a true, real life story that I had with victims' permission to share. So the random person would get up, pull the story, read it, and we were looking for their raw reaction, and
Mm.
it was raw.
Mhm.
Um, and it was beautifully edited by Hillary. And if anybody wanted to
Yes.
see it, it's on YouTube under Miramichi
Mhm.
Emergency Center for Women's account. And if you also went to their
Mhm.
Facebook page or the Domestic Violence Miramichi and Surrounding Area Facebook page and Instagram, you'll see it
Mhm.
there as well. Yeah.
Before Audrey asks her question, I just have to interject for a moment and say that I pulled a question that made my heart kind of stop, but there were two out of all of those people that read those questions, or I guess gave their automatic response, spontaneous reaction to it. I
Mhm.
couldn't believe it. Are we allowed to talk about them at all, Lisa, or is that it's out there in the video? So,
Oh,
but
yes. Yeah.
I just want, yeah. So, I mean, it's out there. I just wanted to say that one woman with several children or three children, whatever, was raped on a daily basis, but was afraid to leave because she had the kids at home. I
That's
was,
right.
and another was I think the other one that blew me away. I thought nothing could really shock me in the 21st century was the woman who, no, it was the babysitter who was a young babysitter who had the children perform on each other sexual acts. I thought
Mm.
this is unbelievable. That I don't know how
Yeah.
you deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, mind
Well,
Disturbing.
blowing.
I was in the video too, and the story that I
Hmm.
pulled, I I I read that story. I heard that story I
Oh.
before, but pulling that story and reading it again, I was still speechless. And the one that
Hmm.
you had mentioned about the woman that couldn't leave because she had children, that kind of goes back to when people ask me this all the time. Why doesn't she just leave? Why doesn't she stay?
Right.
Mm.
Or why does she stay? And my response is,
Yeah,
well, I think the better question is why doesn't he not abuse her for one? But
that's right.
if you really want to know the reason she stays, it's because she has children. It's because she can't afford to leave. It's because she's afraid to leave. It's a million reasons.
Hmm.
It's the devil you know and the devil you don't
Hmm.
know. So
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's right.
Can you
Mhm.
tell us, Lisa, how do you balance yourself? Like, how do you balance your home life, your work with COVID, and possibly stay positive when you work with such a heavy, heartbreaking situations all the time,
Mhm.
and having to deal with all of that? So, how would you balance all of that yourself?
Well, it was hard, especially during the height of the pandemic. We all experienced that. But water, hydrate, 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 and
Hmm.
turn work off at the end of the day is the best you can do. And I have a
Mhm.
good support system around me too. My husband John, he's fantastic. My kids get it. My friends and family get it. So
Hmm.
we don't talk about work after work.
No, I know that my husband's very same. He comes home, he has to shut it
Mhm.
off. Or you can't carry stuff
Mhm.
like that home with you every
Yeah.
day, or it would affect everybody. Lisa, tell us
But
more
I'm not
about
going to
the
lie. Oh,
emergency.
sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. I just want to
Oh,
know about the
sorry, Judy.
emergency shelter for women.
Yes.
Basically, I know that you're probably looking for donations all the time. I mean, these women and children are
Mhm.
in need of so many personal items, sundries, clothing, you name it. And maybe you could just tell us more about what we can do as a community to help you there as a center.
Sure. Well, right now we're kind of limited to what we can accept because of COVID regulations and stuff and
Right.
storage
Oh,
issues. Um,
oh.
the biggest thing that we encourage people to do is play the She Bucks, the 50-50 draw.
Oh,
You
yes.
play your
Yeah.
toonie, just like the other nonprofits in
Yes,
the area do.
exactly.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the shelter's been doing that one for a while, but it just doesn't seem to get the thousands of dollars that the other profits get,
Right.
which is good on them,
Hmm.
but we wouldn't mind having. So
Okay.
we really encourage people to play She Bucks. And recently there was a Facebook post made by one of the staff at the shelter um, to raise money. So we're working on a few things there, and we're always happy to accept donations, cash donations, or
Mm-hmm.
even gift cards to help some of the women that come to stay, and we set them free on
Yeah.
their own and help them set up and to be more independent, whether it be for groceries or gas or something like that. So gift cards are always
Mm-hmm.
are accepted as well. But yeah, play your She
Good.
Bucks.
Okay. Good tip. Thank you for that.
Lisa, I just wanted to touch on a little bit of information maybe that you can share with our viewers, that if there's anybody out there who is maybe sitting on the fence, that they're
Mhm.
unsure if they're in kind of
Mm-hmm.
that domestic violence situation. Oh, he doesn't
Mhm.
hit me that often, or he
Yeah.
doesn't hit me, it's what he says. Like, is there
Mhm.
anything that you can say or inform, or little, like, for them to know that no, the situation you're in is not okay, this is not right,
That's right.
and to seek the help? Because I would think there's a lot of women out there that can justify what's happening,
Mhm.
or they're
Mhm.
unsure if they are truly in that situation, that they
Mm-hmm.
should get help.
Yeah. I would encourage them not to diminish their feelings and their situation because they're not hit. Um, 99% of the time, women would tell me that they would almost prefer the physical evidence of being hit because
Mm.
people don't understand and don't, if you don't see the evidence with emotional abuse, it's hard
To
for
Yeah.
people
believe
to
that it was
understand
real.
it and to believe that it was
Mm-hmm.
real. And they'll tell you it hurts worse because physical
Hmm.
scars will heal, but emotional scars they're a little
Yeah.
harder to heal. But
Mm-hmm.
so emotional, verbal, psychological abuse is a real thing. There's also like
Yeah.
Hmm.
physical abuse and sexual abuse and financial abuse and spiritual abuse.
Financial. Yeah.
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 There's
Um,
the control issues, not being
it's
allowed
all
to
about
uh, hang out with your family or your
mhm,
friends, or to leave the
mhm,
house. Like, that's a
that's
form of
right.
abuse as
It's
well.
all about power and control. And I could go on
Hmm.
actually and give you a whole lesson, but we don't have the time. But so I would really encourage people, if you're just even questioning it, is it abuse?
Hmm.
And if you'd like to talk about it, give me a call if it's safe for you to
Okay.
call, because you can't always pick up the phone and call because an abuser might be monitoring your phone calls and your texts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if somebody were to call and got my voicemail and left me a message, um, they can leave me a number that it's safe for me to call them back or safe for me to text them back because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or get them in trouble for reaching out
Hmm.
to me. So they can reach out. My number at my office is 778-6496, or they can text 625-6496. And the Transition House has a 24-hour support line. So they can call there any time of day. And if it's outreach that they need, the crisis interveners at the Transition House will direct them to me.
That's perfect. Lisa, you've been a wonderful guest. And I just want to, in the last minute that we have before we go to break, just touch very, very briefly on any campaign that you have going on at this time, if there is such a thing.
Yep. So everything's online this year because of COVID.
Okay.
If you go to Facebook and check domestic violence, Miramichi and surrounding area, you will
All right.
find the video that Judy spoke about earlier. You'll find the campaign where folks are holding up signs with stats and
Mhm.
slogans about Sexual Assault Awareness
Yeah.
Month. You'll also find last year's or the year prior's campaign, the What Were You Wearing campaign, which
Right.
is where survivors describe, we have a depiction of what they wore during their assault, just to prove that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what you had on, doesn't matter, outfits do not
Right.
cause sexual violence.
Yeah.
It's perpetrators that do. And
Okay.
coming up in
I
September, we'll
guess we're
have Take Back the Night.
Take back the night. Well, on
Yeah.
that note, I want to thank you for being a wonderful guest, Lisa. We appreciate certainly what you're doing out there for women and standing up against violence, domestic violence, sexual assault. We will see you around the corner somewhere. You're in my neighborhood. And until then, thanks again. And don't go far, folks. We'll be right back. And hello again, everybody. You're in the last segment of Have a Chat. Again, I'm Judy Loge. So happy to be here with my lovely co-host, Audrey Lynch. And with us now, all the way virtually from Bayview, Idaho, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Sarah Zabel, a retired United States Air Force general and former vice director of the U.S. Defense Information Systems Agency, where she managed a federal agency of 16,000 military, civilian, and contract personnel. Her principal mission was to plan, develop, and deliver and operate command and control capabilities and a global enterprise infrastructure in direct support of the President, the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the combatant commanders, the Department of Defense components, and other mission partners across a full spectrum of operations. And that's just a little bit. Welcome, Major General Retired Sarah Zabel.
Thank you, Judy. It's good to see you. And Audrey, thanks.
Yes,
Amazing
hello, Sarah.
woman
Thanks
you
for
are.
joining us today.
Thanks. Thank you.
First off, we want to, of course, welcome you and welcome all our viewers to getting to hear all about you today. As Judy was saying, you're retired now as of 2018, and you're here to talk to us about something very exciting. You have written a book called The Fighting Chance. If you could tell us a little bit about the book.
Yes, absolutely. So Fighting Chance is about the science of depression. And you might wonder why someone like me would be writing about the science of depression, or even if I should be writing about the science of depression. It came from a lot of long-term experience. Especially, I have a friend who has been a friend since we were both in the Air Force together. So we were friends since our early lieutenant days. And she was just happy, normal, gregarious, very outgoing until about 13 or 14 years ago. And then she went into a major depressive episode, and it was a complete change. She was miserable. She was unhappy. She was just so quiet and slow. And the worst part was she attempted suicide several times.
Oh.
So it was just such a shock to, my friend who I knew so well, to see her going through this. And so years and years went on. She got some treatments. Sometimes they helped, sometimes they didn't. And as I was talking with her and, we'd go on trips together occasionally, it was like she was a different person. And I remember one time we were supposed to take a vacation together. She got a new job, so she had to change the date. I couldn't change the date, so she went by herself. When she got back, I called her, said, how was it? Nice vacation. She said, oh, yes, it was good most of the time. But, a couple of days ago, I woke up and you weren't there. So I thought I should just kill myself. So after that,
oh my,
yes. After that, I was afraid to talk to her. I was afraid to not talk to her. I was afraid something I did or said or failed to do or say was going to make her kill herself. So of course, this went on, like I said, for about, years. When I retired from the Air Force, I had a chance to I had the time and everything to dig into it, to try to understand what is depression. Basically, I wanted to know what could I do that would hopefully help her, but at least not hurt her. And what I learned about the science of depression was just so fascinating that in the end, I had to put it into a book and put it out there, because there is so much that is just, you would not expect, so many unexpected things about depression, and people really ought to know what so many people are going through.
Okay, well, on that note, then some people that are watching are going through depression right now, and some people have never experienced depression, such as myself. I get, down or blue or anxious, or if I don't get depressed as such as people I do know that are clinically depressed. So tell us about depression. Tell us all about it and what you think people should know, and what are some old, types of treatment that was way back when and not serving the people anymore, or should be, they shouldn't be using anymore? Talk to us.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the big surprises or discoveries, as I was going through this research, for me at least, was that depression is a very physical illness. You talked about, you haven't been depressed, but people who are clinically depressed. What some of the things that they're going through. So it's not just being in a down mood. It's not just losing interest in pleasure and stuff. They also, there's physical symptoms. So in almost all of them, either sleep too much or can't sleep. They eat too much or can't eat. My friend Carolyn, it was odd. Her voice was different. Her speech patterns were different because it's a very physical changes taking place in someone's brain when they are depressed. And the basics parts of it is there are some connections between brain cells and some types of brain cells that are just lost in depression. So there are physical changes happening. So the first takeaway from that is that depression is not a mood or an emotional state. So major depressive disorder, it is a physical illness. And, people have stigma against mental illnesses, but they got to understand this is an illness with a physical basis. It's not something that, it's not someone just being weak. It's not something that they're going to snap out of any more than you snap out of, having a broken arm or something. So that's probably the big one. Yeah. But talking about treatments, one thing I would want to say, so there are, there's a long history of treatments. All of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with some of the antidepressant medications that you'll see advertised or, people take. They work for about 50% of the people who take them, which is good, considering how closely linked depression and suicide are. It's really good. 50% can achieve recovery, remission with just antidepressants. But there are about the other 50% who are treatment resistant. And for them, they try other things, and hopefully they're successfully treated. But it's amazing. In the last 10, 15 years, there have been so many advances in understanding what's going on in the brain in depression. Mostly comes from functional imaging of what's happening in someone's brain while they're alive, awake, thinking about stuff, depressed, not depressed. So scientists can see what's going on. And so there are new, within the last few years, new treatments that are really, really effective. So people can get help. It's reaching so many more of those treatment resistant people. Things like ketamine, things like transcranial magnetic stimulation. These are amazing new treatments that are out there now.
Okay, good information there. Interesting.
Yes, very, very interesting. In your book, you say that antidepressant meds that people have been taking and using successfully for decades are actually based on a disproved theory of depression. Like, how is that possible?
Yes, it's one of the unexpected things about depression. Back in the 1950s, it's basically there were these antidepressants where the drug came first. The antidepressant was invented, and then they kind of backed into, okay, how is that working? What's going on in the brain that's affecting? So one of the older antidepressants, it was supposed to be an antihistamine. Another one was supposed to be a medicine for tuberculosis. And for both of those, when they were testing them, they found that the people taking them were just, unexpectedly happy. So they're testing anti-tuberculosis drugs on people who are dying of tuberculosis. And all of a sudden they're just really, really happy. So they started looking into why is this happening? And they invented these antidepressants. But because of what they saw, they concluded that, okay, antidepressants work. So depression happens when the serotonin system in the brain gets messed up. And every traditional antidepressant, so if you've heard of, Zoloft and, all the antidepressants that you can get on the market these days, they all affect the serotonin system based on the theory that that's where depression comes from. So you undo that, you undo depression. But it turns out that they found out that no, actually, it's like these antidepressants of the serotonin system, that's how you get out of depression, but that's not what got you in there. What gets people into depression is when the growth processes in their brains and the adaptation process get interrupted. So we always grow new brain cells during our lifetime. We also make new connections as we're learning stuff or, experiencing things. That gets interrupted in depression. And that's what makes people depressed. But turns out serotonin, affecting that system can get you out. So yeah, it was one of those, all these things that they're advertising, billions and billions of dollars worth of industry. They're actually, it's not, that's not how people get depressed. It's how they get undepressed, which is good, but that's
Right.
not how they get depressed. Yeah.
No, it's more, it sounds like you would consider that to be more of like a Band-Aid. You still have to go back to
Yes.
why you are and how come you are in the first place. What caused it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you talked about in your book current research into gut microbes.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to know how something living in the gut could cause such problems for people and such anguish and depression.
Yeah, it is amazing as scientists are exploring, where does depression come from? What are the origins of depression? One thing they've learned is that as we're developing and then growing and living our lives, these microorganisms, and mostly bacteria in our gut, they have an incredible effect on our development, the brain's development, and also how the brain continues to work throughout the adult lifetime. So they've experimented with germ-free mice. So these are mice that they are especially, born, raised, etc., with no microbes on them or in them. And they see that they grow up to have different social, different anxiety levels, different social sort of behaviors, and different brain structure, including some genes that work differently in those mice than normal mice with normal microbes. So that kind of led into, okay, what are the effects of this? And they're finding out that it really affects how the brain develops and how the brain operates, including depression. So it is amazing. I did not know.
Yes, it is. It's fascinating.
Gut microbes
Yeah.
could do that. Yes.
Yeah.
So to me, in a nutshell, it seems like you're saying, or your research that you have found has led you to believe that, because initially you had said before us starting our interview, that everybody has a vulnerable side. And we all can be susceptible to depression or to experience depression. So one's gut health, right, depending on what happens to them throughout their lifespan, experiencing trauma or the highs and lows of life and how they handle it, their gut health is directly related to how they, whether or not they experience depression or a down at that level where they should look into their gut health. And, I feel like that's what you're saying.
Yes. So depression comes from a lot of places. Some of it is, let's say there's a genetic level of vulnerability. If you have a depressed, like mother, father, first degree relative, you have a higher chance of developing depression yourself. Some of it comes from early life adversity. And with your previous speaker, I mean, she was amazing. And it's awful to think what people go through, especially when children are going through those experiences, especially emotional abuse or neglect. They have a much higher chance of developing depression as an adult, decades later.
Yeah.
But you're talking about gut health. It is amazing. People with irritable bowel syndrome are much more likely to have depression than people without. And people with depression are much more likely to have irritable bowel syndrome. So it's there. It's also part of your diet, part of your, and how much stress you're under at any time. There's a lot of things that go into making someone depressed.
Does your research lead you to believe that major depression is preventable?
I think it makes me believe that it's manageable. There could be a lot of things that are that give people vulnerability to depression. Like I said, genetics, early life adversity, you can't change that. And then things that are happening in the current time. But one of the worst things that really degrades like the brain's growth ability and the physical processes that are going to help you either be resilient or be depressed, chronic stress. So, especially these days, we have the pandemic, so people are worried about their health. Yes. People are worried about their health, they're worried about their jobs, they're fighting, everything. They have, children at home that they can't deal with. These things all go into, are you going to get depressed? So when these things are piling up, there may not be anything you can do about becoming depressed. But by understanding yourself and how your body works and how you respond to treatments, people are able to manage their depression. So maybe they can make their depressive episode so lighter, shorter, come back and take some preventive measures so that they don't go again into a major depressive episode. It's hard, but it can be managed.
Yeah. All right. That's good
Sarah,
to know.
Yeah. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about, you had just mentioned our current times,
Yes.
COVID, and everybody on lockdown, everything has changed. I actually want to gear this question towards our youth. I have two young teenagers who are now, their whole world has shifted and changed on how they school, how they live their lives, how they deal with things socially, but they're not at a maturity level to understand what is depression, why is it I'm feeling it, and how to cope with it. What thoughts and advice do you have for them or us as parents on how to help them?
So with the pandemic, I've talked about the increase in chronic stress for everybody. And then the healthy activities, the things that keep your brain growing and healthy and changing, those are things like exercise, like exposure to the natural environment, where you can get your good microbes, like social interactions and interacting with people. And of course, part of the pandemic is we're being denied all of that. So bad enough for adults, but for young people whose brains are still developing, their brains will be developing until they're like 23 years old. It's really bad on them. So I think what I would want them to do is I would want, parents to talk to their kids and to listen, to understand that the degree to which they really need to interact, they need to get outside, they need to, work with people in some way, but also really listen when they say something doesn't feel right, or when they say, something's physically wrong. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. When they say that
their stomach is bothering,
myself.
it doesn't feel good, or you know what I mean?
Really
Things like
listen.
that.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to take them to a doctor. There's a stigma against mental illness, but no, like I said, it's physical. It is physical. Take them to the doctor. Yes.
Yeah, it just seems like we have so many youth that are on antidepressants, younger and younger all the time. It's almost scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, look, you have been an amazing guest, Major General. You're retired now, and just an accomplished woman. I am really looking forward to reading your book, and I want viewers to know where to actually get that. So I do want to say that it's been our pleasure having you. You're our first guest outside of Canada. And so this was an international, very big step for us. And at Rogers, we're really proud of that. But just before we say goodbye to everybody and say come back again next week, we are just at the very last second. Let us know where we can get your book, online or in bookstores. Where?
Yes. Try online. Go www.sarahzabel.com, and it's spelled like that. And you can have links to bookstores there. Good.
Well, we wish you all the best. You've certainly done a lot in your career. Keep on writing, keep on sharing vital information, and you're doing a great job. So proud to have had you as our guest. Thank you so very much. All right,
Thank you,
take
Sarah.
care and goodbye, everybody.